I'd like to introduce Kim Jackson, who is the Vice President of Business Analytics for Adventist Health. Kim, welcome to the program. So let's get right to it. Can you tell us a little bit about Adventist Health and what's going on there?
Sure, absolutely. Adventist Health is a faith-based nonprofit integrated health system. We're in California, Oregon, and Hawaii with over 80 communities. We practice in the Seventh-day Adventist faith. We service rural and urban communities, primarily rural. Our mission is living God's love by inspiring health, wholeness, and hope. 21 hospitals, medical groups, and health plans with 28,000 employees and 1,200 physicians.
Thanks for that. I imagine this is really important given the current environment. Now, this is about data and being data-driven. So walk us through real quick your values on being data-driven.
Absolutely. As a faith-based organization, our mission and values are extremely important to us. And we live by these 3 B statements. 2 in particular that reach out to me within the data world is to be a mission owner. You'll see through the rest of my organization that we had outsourced most of our data strategy and the work that we do. But to be a mission owner, you need to understand your strategy. You need to drive your organization. So I take that to heart, and we wanted to have a new direction for our organization. And also, we needed to treat data as an intellectual property. And to do so, we needed to, again, own our data, use it appropriately, and help drive our organization forward.
Perfect. Yeah. Outside of your people, your intellectual property, data, as Andy pointed out in the beginning, is probably your most important asset. So we're about, a little over halfway through 2020. So can you take us like a minute through going through your priorities? And I'd like you to touch on data literacy, if you would. You wrote an article recently in a CIO periodical about data literacy and how that's one of your priorities. So walk us through that just for a minute.
Absolutely. So I love to share what we're doing. I know when I attend these events, I want to see what my peers are doing, in particular in these areas. So I talked about how we outsource. So one of our first goal was to insource our analytic team and our leadership. I was one of those decisions. So I've just come on my anniversary. I've been with the organization for about a year. To do that also, we had to groom our talent and increase the work that we do so that we were less reactive and more proactive so that we could help our organization. Data literacy is a core fundamental to that, fundamental strategy towards that. So instead of us just being technical people, we really need to understand our data domains. In the healthcare space, understanding the difference between charges and billings and our payers and what clinical documentation and pharmacy and laboratory. Healthcare data is super, super wide with all the traditional business functions, as well as a really large clinical longitudinal record from the outpatient to the clinic. It can go on and on and on. So you can imagine how our clinicians at the bedside, our financial FOs don't have time to learn all of these data structures that they need us to be experts so that we can give them the insights instead of them learning a super complicated data model. And data literacy and having our talent and our employees understand that so that they can deliver that service is essential for us to be successful.
Sensing a theme of partnering with the business, not just being IT people. So rewind a little bit. You said you've been with Adventist Health for about a year. And what was the situation? We can go to the next slide. And what was the situation? Similar to what kind of Derek was talking about out front. What was going on when you dropped in?
Absolutely. So not only had we outsourced our analytical leadership, but we had outsourced our platforms. Mm-hmm. Our platform was end of life, and we were with our vendor, our EMR, electronic medical record vendor. It happens to be Cerner. They supported, and we had our data warehouse in their environment. So it was end of life. It hadn't had patches in 2 years. We weren't able to own our data model. We had lots of problems with stability. So we really needed to have a modern environment. Our new strategy, our 2030 strategy, isn't dependent on us being able to have technology to support, a data model to support. As hospitals go from just being hospital-based to community-based, we needed more data sets and not just hospital-centric. We needed to understand the community as well. So we needed a broader data sets and tools to help us do that. we had multiple data platforms, multiple EDWs, and we aren't able to connect all of that data together to actually make it a differential in the work that we do. Rising costs. The cost that we were paying for this end-of-life EDW was very, very large, and we needed to reduce that. In fact, we were able to reduce it by 60% by moving. So I'm real proud of that. And we were also dependent on our vendors' roadmap. They had competing databases. They wanted us to use their tools, and they made decisions that wouldn't allow us to do what we were interested in doing in their same environment. So we were really lock and key to their roadmap, their desires, not our desires as an organization.
So multiple data sources, rising cost, you were kind of relying on a single vendor there that was kind of you wanted to own your own destiny. Let's go to the next slide. You probably had some goals when you dropped in on how to improve that, get to those 2020 objectives. You can walk us through that a little bit?
Absolutely. We wanted a single source of truth. So we wanted our finance, our clinical, our operational data in one spot so that we can see them all together. We needed faster, more stable processing. I told you our environment went down a lot. It needed to be up. We needed to be a tier 1 application so that our users could use their data to make business decisions. We needed to move to advanced analytics. We weren't able to because we didn't have real-time data. You can't make clinical decisions 3 days later. You really need to be at point of care to impact in the work that we do, which comments on this retrospective to concurrent analysis. And we need better security. We HIPAA and the consequences for breaches are really strict. I know they are in other businesses as well, but that's foremost in the work that we do. And we need to increase our data quality, of course. The more data sources you have, we have hundreds of people touching every record. There's so many clinicians, and we need to make sure that we can wrangle that data and to use it appropriately to make business.
Sure. So got some great objectives, lots to do, lots of goals. Why Oracle? I think everybody wants
to. In many ways, we're an Oracle shop. We use our finance, our HR applications, many of our databases are Oracle. So it seemed like a natural fit to make sure. Also, our third-party tools, they're also partners with y'all. So we really felt like platform, our data was already using these tools and formats. So it would be a natural combination for us to work with. Also, data security. Talked about how that's so important, and everybody knows about all the HIPAA rules that are required. Y'all were one of the very few who were willing even to share that risk. So y'all are a partner in this endeavor, and that was really important to you. If we're going to partner with you, share our all data with you, then we need to make sure that you take it as seriously as we do. And I talked about the cost model. It's more flexible. So y'all have a catalog. We can use what we want when. We get charged for the use that we have. And that's nice in case we decide we want to pivot and go in a different direction.
So putting you on the spot a little bit, other vendors I'm not ready for you yet. Other vendors claim data security. So was there something unique about what Oracle's doing, or that the other vendors weren't providing that kind of put us in that leading position?
So, for example, Amazon, Microsoft were unwilling to sign our BA, which would share the risk. So that what that means is in the healthcare space, for example, I don't know how many people who aren't in this space. If you have a breach, you're charged $500 a day for every patient that you breach. So if a switch is changed and we have a breach of our entire population, that could be millions and millions of records, which is a really lengthy. Time and hours isn't enough for that type of risk. We wanted to make sure that our partner understand how important that was, and we're going to share that legal risk with us.
Perfect. Well, thank you for the partnership. We're certainly happy to partner.
You got to lock that key, right? Because I don't want to pay that bill. I don't think
That's right. It's a shared risk.
As well as keeping our patients safe, which is
go ahead.
Number one thing.
Yeah, look, we're happy to partner on the technology side. More than happy to partner on the security. We really feel like we're a business partner at this stage. So, got it. Thank you again for being a customer. Let's talk a little bit about implementation.
Sure, absolutely. And I think this is in contrast to your last conversation, which was a while ago. So people who might be wanting to switch, how long did it really take us and what did we do? And of course, you can never just do one thing at a time.
Yeah.
These timelines, it's important. It took us we had 2 months to lift and shift, meaning create an environment in the new space and move it. We also had new content. So Adventist Health is on an acquisition journey. So we're buying additional hospitals and medical groups. And so we had a big acquisition that we wanted to bring on. So we did that work. We also did additional AP integration. We had a really large EMR, that's Enterprise Medical Record, upgrade. In fact, they changed their ID structure. So you can imagine if you change your ID structure, the patient ID structure, how that would really affect. We went from 2 different ID structures into one, and we had to manage both of them at the same time as we transition. I told you we had 21 hospitals. As we move every hospital from this 2 ID structure to 1 ID structure. I know that's super in the weeds, but that's just not moving. I have to move and maintain both at the same time. So that made it complicated. And our vendor didn't have audit and reconciliation. I want to make sure that my source and target, they match, and I reconcile for better data quality. So we added that functionality. That took about 5 months. Meanwhile, I told you I wanted to insource my department. So we're insourcing accountability and ensuring that we have the proper skill set to support our program in the long term.
Fantastic. So I did this with the other guys. So let's take a look at your architecture, if you will. So where do we stand today? And not uncommon to have other logos in there. And in fact, we embrace that. So you can walk us through your architecture as it stands today.
Absolutely. What you might notice here is a lot of holes, right? And I think that's okay. So we are in the beginning of our journey, and I think that's important. I told you that I wanted to own my own destiny, and some of these are a result of the fact that we had outsourced that strategy. And so we want to make sure that as we move forward and own our strategy, we fill these holes. But it's just as important to know what you have as what you don't have as well, in my opinion. So you see, we have these operational systems. We are looking to add more streaming data for that community data that I spoke about. We have moved to the autonomous data warehouse that we spoke about. Our electronic medical record happens to be Cerner. We use Informatica and R in various different ways to be agile, and as we've tried new things. For data science, we've used a little bit of Python. We have a very young MDM reference data, and we've used one of your tools, Apex, for a little bit of that, and Salesforce, and we're working to grow that to improve our data quality. We have Elation is in our roadmap this year to implement it. And we have some self-service tools, Tableau, Business Objects. I want to expand that. And we use OAC a little bit to do that. And the goal is part of this move to expand utilization in that space as well.
We missed the OAC logo in there. But that's okay. So I've got good news for you, Kim.
I couldn't find it. It just looked like Oracle. So
That's right.
If you have one, I'll add it to my slide.
I've got good news for you. In a minute, we're going to talk to Manuel, and he actually has the story on streaming and data lakes. So we're going to help you in a minute here, and certainly happy to partner with everybody else. I think you saw some value in, hey, look, we've got the breadth and complete integrated story. Absolutely. I think you would agree with that. However, the reality of this situation is sometimes you got to move and improve and lift and shift existing things to take quicker advantage. And I think we see that with some of these. So let's move right along into some of the outcomes. I think everybody's curious to know what actually happened. What'd you get out of this?
Sure. Here's some examples. I'm a real data-driven person. I am the data gal, right? So here's some examples in particular. So we use Tableau a lot. So here's some examples. We started in our prior environment of some of our larger sessions, by the way. These are large ones. We started at 23 minutes, and we were able to reduce it down to 10-minute jobs. And again, in multi-session environment, we were able to cut it a third as well. So you can see that's a substantial amount. One of the largest ones, we went from 41 minutes to 4 minutes. So those are pretty strong reductions in the time it took to run our jobs.
Yeah, look, time in your industry is critical, and I don't take that lightly. So thank you for looking at our solution. Let's take a look at, query performance is one thing. Let's look at the administration part of the equation. And Derek mentioned a little this, and again, we're going to hear from Manuel a little bit. What are you seeing from an administration perspective?
So we had about a quarter FTE doing performance tuning. We've been able to reduce that to about 10% of one person and doing that work. We also used to create materialized views, as you see, that took about 300 hours to create them and a ton of storage. That's no longer needed. So we don't have to do that activity anymore. And what I'm excited about is we used to spend quite a bit of time indexing. We don't have to do that anymore, but I always write TBD because I'm the proof in the pudding girl. So in 2 years, you can ask me again and see if I think the performance is the same. I'm hoping from your last presentation, they seem to think it's getting better and better. So I'm looking forward to continuing to see those results.
Fantastic. I don't think you'll be unhappy based on what I've seen with other customers as well. So it's a journey, totally get that. So let's wrap up with kind of going back to your objectives from a few slides ago. What sort of outcomes that you see that this platform and investment in Oracle and our partnership, our business partnership is getting you?
Yeah, so I would say just to make it clear that this sets the foundation for many of these things, right? So single source of truth, we'll be able to add more data, and we're already doing that in our projects as we more and more. We still have more than one source of truth, of course. That's a journey. You will always have more data. As you've seen, we've already seen faster environment. We want to make sure we're on a long-term that we're stable, and we've been able to do that. We set the stage for us to do advanced analytics. In particular, right now, where we've been doing is forecasting volumes of COVID cases. If you can imagine, that's really important to an organization such as mine. So we've been working through there. We're doing Golden Gate as we speak now, so that we can have more concurrent and data analysis and move to have faster data acquisition. I'm happy, and we've had approved data strategy, which is super important. And we've been doing all of this auditing to improve the data quality from sometimes in our old platform up to 10% variance. Can you believe that? To an SLA of 6 Sigma. So we really want to improve our digestion quality as well.
Yeah, one thing we missed, and then we'll wrap here, is one of your objectives, I believe, was acquisition. So you had mentioned previously about the speed of acquiring companies.
There are companies too, but hospitals, right, and medical groups. So if you can imagine, right, if we purchase a hospital, we need to understand their operational and clinical space. So we need to be able to acquire data just like any other organization very quickly so we can manage them. So for us to be able to do that quickly really helps our organization and ensure that we can service the community as we'd like to.
Yeah, I think you had said that previous to moving to this platform took a long time to acquire those data assets, and now give us an idea.
It not only did take a while, but we had to with our vendor partner, they had to move on to our platform. So we're Cerner. So if, for example, they were Meditech, we had to move them from Meditech to Cerner. Now, an EMR transition, electronic medical record, can take 1 to 2, sometimes 3 years. And that most famous one can take 4 years sometimes. So that's a long time not to have the data that you need. So here we can take the data we want, move it in the data warehouse, and maybe do parallels, bring them side to side, because we may never decide to bring them into our EMR. I told you, rural hospitals, it might not be worth the money to do so. It may be appropriate, or maybe they're in a different part of the state and they wouldn't have cross-population of patients. So you need to do it purposefully, not just because, and to do so, this gives us flexibility to make those decisions.
Perfect. Yeah, I imagine, and we talked about this off camera, that the reason you acquire some of these is to move them from the red to the black, and you need to do that as quickly as possible. So that's really the outcome of faster acquisition. Kim, thanks a lot for your time. Thank you for the partnership. And we're looking forward to some great things and improved healthcare in those rural areas.
Awesome. Thank you so much.